Chapter 9. The Light Window Market. Rowan had been filing the block of steel for 2 hours when Pip appeared at the top of the stairwell. The file made a low, steady chirp against the steel with each stroke, and he had fallen into the rhythm of it, his hands learning the metal's resistance. "Market in 20 minutes, Pip said. "You're coming." He looked up. She was already halfway across the hangar floor with a bag over one shoulder. "You can file when we get back. You've never seen a Meridian light window from ground level, and I have things to sell." She stopped beside him. "Come on." He set down the file. Pip picked up his water flask and held it out. "Drink this on the way down." He drank, set the steel on the work cloth, covered the exposed mechanism with the fitted tarp Marcus used, and followed Pip down the 6 flights of stairs. Meridian's light window arrived the way his mountains did, gradually, the gray brightening by degrees over a span of roughly 45 minutes. But on the mountain, the transition was a private event, noticed by Rowan and his mother and the chickens. In Meridian, it was a signal. The city woke around him as they descended through the levels. On the 4th floor, shutters banged open along the corridor and light spilled in, weak and gray-white but unmistakably different from the dim. Outside, a faint mechanical clicking started up, rhythmic and steady. As the solar panels on the outer walls adjusted their angles to track the brightening sky. People emerged from doorways, pulling on coats, carrying tools. On the 3rd floor, the foot traffic thickened. Everyone moved downward, toward the farming terraces at the base of the city, where the light window's direct exposure was strongest. By the time they reached the ground level, the transformation was complete. The narrow streets that had felt enclosed and dim the day before were flooded with activity and the pale wash of filtered sunlight. The farming terraces, visible through open archways in the east wall, were alive with workers bending to rows of crops, moving between beds, tending with the urgency of people who could not afford to waste a single minute of light. "Market's this way," Pip said, steering him left through a broad intersection where 3 corridors met. "Ground level, south quadrant, runs the full length of the light window." The market occupied an open courtyard between 2 residential blocks. A retractable awning over the space had been rolled back to let the light in. The noise reached Rowan before the sight did. Voices layered over voices, many people conducting transactions at once, each conversation competing for space in the open air. Beneath them, the secondary sounds of commerce, objects set on stone, the clink of metal tokens passing between hands, the rustle of cloth and dried goods being measured and weighed. Vendors lined the perimeter, their goods arranged on tables and blankets and the bare stone of low walls. Rowan counted 14 stalls as they entered, each one staffed, each one with customers already. 1 light credit equals 1 hour of priority access to the farming terraces during the window, Pip said, navigating through the crowd with the ease of long practice. She stopped at a stall where a man was laying out salvaged metal components on a cloth. "Give me 10 minutes. I need to sell before the good buyers spend their budgets." Rowan stepped back and watched. Pip traded the way she navigated, fast, confident decisions made from knowledge nobody else had. The copper wire went first. Exchanged for a bag of dried mushrooms and 2 light credits with a man who tested the wire by running it between his fingers, feeling for kinks or breaks in the strand. He nodded, satisfied, and Pip pocketed the credits, small tokens stamped with a sun symbol that clinked against each other in her coat. Rowan assumed the symbol was Meridian's mark. The compasses followed, sold separately to 2 different buyers who each examined the needle action with professional skepticism before agreeing on terms. One buyer, an older woman with calloused hands, asked where Pip had found them. Pip named a ruin site 2 days east, and the woman's expression shifted, something between respect and envy. Good scavenging ground, apparently, and Pip knew it before anyone else did. The before-sewing needles, still sealed in their original packaging, drew a small crowd. Pip held a brief, cheerful auction that ended with a woman in a patched coat trading a full week of dried food rations and 4 light credits. The winner opened the package carefully, examined the needles with the reverence of someone handling surgical instruments, and tucked them inside her coat. Rowan watched the buyers greet Pip with familiarity, ask after specific items, defer to her assessments of condition and value. She had no permanent home and no settlement affiliation, and these people trusted her inventory and her word. They had reason to. Every item she sold was as described, every transaction clean. And she would be back on her cycle to do it again. The light window reached its peak. Rowan felt it before he measured it. The gray-white light intensifying to its maximum, the shadows in the courtyard shortening, the color of the stone walls shifting from dull gray to a warmer brown. The market crowd responded, movement slowed and conversations dropped, and then, without signal or announcement, every face turned upward. The sky above the courtyard was not blue, not clear, just the same gray-white overcast that covered the world. But it was bright, brighter than anything the dim produced. And the light that fell from it was direct and real, with a faint warmth Rowan could feel on his face, on his closed eyelids, on the skin of his hands where they hung at his sides. The market was still, 50 or 60 people with their faces raised to the light. The moment lasted perhaps 5 seconds before it broke, and the crowd returned to its transactions with renewed energy. The brief collective pause absorbed into the flow of commerce like water into dry ground. Rowan opened his eyes. The market was different in the light, surrounded by more people than he had ever seen. He watched the buyers and sellers around him, the small expressions that closed each deal, the brief smiles and satisfied nods that the dim would have hidden. Pip stepped up beside him, her trading done, her bag lighter and her pockets heavier with clinking tokens. "You're staring at people," she said. "Their faces look different in the light," Rowan said. Pip glanced around the market. "Yeah, that's why some people only do serious business during the window. They want to see who they're dealing with. Harder to lie when someone can see your whole face." She pulled a piece of dried fruit from her pocket and handed it to him. "Eat this. It's a dried apple from one of the southern settlements that still has trees. You've probably never had one." He had not. He put it in his mouth and his teeth closed on a texture that was nothing like mushroom, nothing like root flour, nothing like anything he had eaten before. Sweet first, then sour, then something deeper that had no equivalent in his vocabulary. He chewed slowly. The flavor kept changing as he chewed, releasing layers he had not expected. He stood in the middle of a market in a city he had not known existed a week ago, eating a piece of fruit from a tree he had never seen. Pip watched his face and said nothing. Near the center of the courtyard, voices rose. 2 groups faced each other across a space the crowd had instinctively cleared. Rowan counted 8 people, 4 on each side, their postures stiff, their voices loud with grievance. "Terrace dispute," Pip said, watching without alarm. "Happens every few weeks. 2 farming crews fighting over who gets the last 20 minutes of direct light on the south terraces. The angle changes as the window shifts, and at the end of the cycle only one side of the terrace gets full exposure. 20 minutes. On the mountain, 20 minutes was the difference between a battery reaching full charge and falling short. Here, it was the difference between 2 crews' harvests. A third person arrived, a woman in a gray coat with a ledger under her arm. The crowd murmured and settled. The woman opened her ledger, consulted it, and began speaking in a voice that carried without shouting. She recited numbers, light credit allocations, terrace assignments, rotation schedules. Each crew's representative responded with their own numbers. The mediator listened, consulted the ledger again, and announced a resolution. The South Terrace's final 20 minutes would alternate between the crews on a daily rotation, with credits adjusted for whichever crew got less light. Neither crew was satisfied, but both crews accepted. The mediator closed her ledger and left. The crowd filled the cleared space again, and the market continued as if the dispute had been a brief weather event, expected and unremarkable. "You hate it here," Pip said, reading his face. "I do not hate it," Rowan said. "I do not understand how anyone gets anything done with this many opinions." That's the mountain talking. Pip took his arm and steered him back toward the courtyard entrance. "Come on. The window closes in about 90 minutes, and you've got filing to do." They climbed back through the levels. The foot traffic reversed as the light window began its decline, people moving upward now, carrying harvested produce, returning tools to storage rooms, the organized retreat of a population that knew the light's departure as well as they knew its arrival. On the fourth floor, Rowan stopped at a window. The courtyard below was emptying, the vendors packing their stalls with the same efficiency they had used to set them up. The gray-white light was fading, the warm tones leaving the stone walls, the shadows lengthening and blurring as the dim returned. The farming terraces were clearing, the last workers pulling tarps over the exposed beds, protecting the crops from the moisture and the spore drift that intensified in the after-window hours. He pulled the notebook from his coat pocket. The pencil stub was wearing thin, but it still wrote. He noted the date, the light window's start time as best he could estimate it, and the running duration, 4 hours, 37 minutes. He would note the final number when the last light faded. Pip waited behind him, watching him write. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Measuring," Rowan said. Pip leaned to see the page. "Measuring what?" "The light." She looked at the notebook, at his careful notation, at the column of numbers that stretched back across the pages to his mountain. "You've been doing this a while," she said. 6 years, Rowan said. Pip was quiet. She looked out the window at the fading light, then back at him. "Meridian measures too," she said. "They've got a whole system, with charts on the school wall, and Marcus tracks it from the hangar." "Good," Rowan said. He closed the notebook and put it away. More data points make a better picture. The light window closed, the dim settled over Meridian, and the city shifted into its after-window rhythm, quieter, slower, lit by oil lamps and the faint residual charge of solar batteries. Rowan climbed the last 2 flights to the hangar, sat down beside the steel, uncovered it, and picked up his file. He had caught the final fade from the stairwell window, 4 hours, 41 minutes. He would check again tomorrow.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.